So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe the key to scaling and compounding your wealth in life starts every single day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal is to help you scale and compound your wealth in life so you can get more all the way to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swarts. Each and every episode, we're joined by the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, or billionaires, and they share their secrets and insights with us so we can all compound and make a bigger impact. I'm excited about our next guest. He's going to give us kind of like a mini masterclass on how to invest with indeed investing. And in fact, I'm kind of fascinated because I don't think we've had anyone on the show to speak about this before. And it's there's definitely lots of ways to make investing in real estate. And so these are tax sale investing simplified, creating wealth through the JurisDeed founder. And this gentleman is going to teach us how to do these kind of things right now. Please welcome to the show with me, Stephen Morel. Stephen, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. And you're the founder and CEO of JurisDeed. Tell us a little more about that and your current focus.
Yeah, JurisDeed is a software platform that helps delinquent tax lien investors to systematize and streamline the process and eliminate complications and really create better access to the investment as an asset class rather than as one-offs and two-offs here and there, and bringing the entire nation of the asset into a single platform.
It's exciting because like what you have is complex, but being able to build it out. So, let's dive right into it. What's kind of the secret to, tax lien investing? And then we can talk about the process and working with your team.
Yeah, the biggest secret is really that it works at scale. It's, and that's really where you might read the late night infomercials and gurus are telling you about these massive returns on tax liens. It's not that they're lying. They're just telling you that this is how it can be done. And what does that mean? You really need to do a lot of it. And you have to diversify across different states. And that's where it gets complicated. You could pick up a book and read how to do it. But if you go buy one or two tax liens at your local county sale, you're not going to necessarily get the returns that they're talking about. But therein lies the problem. How do you just jump into it at scale or why waste my time doing anything else? And it's because every state it's very fragmented across the country. Every state has different laws and they change sometimes. And you got to keep up with all that. And then every state has different attorneys and service providers. And you think you're doing something that's a foreclosure, essentially. You're jumping into it and it's already delinquent. And that's the point. And so you might think you have to involve legal compliance steps and research and letters and check the boxes of a lot of things, similar to how a mortgage company would have to navigate a mortgage foreclosure. They would turn to lawyers in that state. They would have asset managers. They would have all these things because what you're trying to do is get to liquidity with more money than you started with. It's a pretty straightforward concept, but the process is fraught with a lot of pitfalls if you're trying to achieve those gains. So what we've created is a national platform to systematize all of that into a single asset class that anyone can participate in, not just the institutional players that have made billions off of this investment for over a century.
Okay, excellent. I'm speaking with Stephen Morel, everybody, founder and CEO of JurisDeed. You can find more by going to jurisdeed.com, jurisdeed.com. Okay, so that makes sense. Walk us through, how you kind of told me how complicated it can be. I guess how simple is it with you guys, and walk us through what the average person who's invested in real estate, either passively or actively, has owned some rentals, maybe, as a business owner is like, okay, why would I jump into something I don't know? And how simple really is it with using your guys' software?
The best analogy is you don't have to learn how to be a stock trader to make money in your 401k, right? So other people have already figured all that out. You just need to say yes. And then you're all of a sudden you see the money going up or down depending on the economy. But the point is that up until now you've had to be a pro in order to make money in tax lien. You had to be a lawyer. You had to understand the whole thing, and that was just in one state. But nationally, and to do it at scale, you had to quit your day job and just be the best. And that's what we're changing. That we're basically taking all the institutional tactics that have existed for decades and bottling them up and putting them and making them accessible to anyone to take advantage of without needing to learn how to do it yourself. And so now you have to have capital. I mean, that is a paramount thing. It's the same with your 401k, right? The money has to come from somewhere. And you have to be able to acquire those assets. Now we have lots of research and courses and there's tons of information on how to go get the liens. The hard part is not getting the liens. It is what do you do with it after you've acquired it, and how do you end up with not a bunch of lemons that just steal all your time and money away and wish you never started in the first place? How do you get to where you're happy and you're making returns like they were the late night infomercials and gurus had promised you might be able to make? And so that's the path forward. Through the software, we're able to do that. Now you still have transparency and control, which is paramount. This is your financial wealth building tool. And so you're able to, just like if you were managing your investment accounts online at Fidelity, et cetera, you would still expect to be able to log in anytime you want to, see what's going on, hit the stop button, hit the start button, increase, decrease, all that kind of good stuff. So we're still early on and we're building all these tools out, but you absolutely are going to have transparency and control all the steps of the way. But where we're intersecting the investor in the journey is just after acquiring the assets at the tax sale, which is where the hard part really comes in. And then taking you all the way through to liquidity, all the way you're cashing your check. And so getting to the good part, what can I make from this, right? That's what the other part of your question. Institutional investors have averaged 15, 18% year over year. And they're playing the long game, right? And there's a massive change going on right now in this space. Exactly. And it's the timing. I would like to say that I did this on purpose, but I can't control what cases go to the Supreme Court and change the whole landscape of the investment. But just a couple of years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that you can't have excess surplus from selling the property at a foreclosure sale. So what does that mean? Think about a mortgage foreclosure, and the house sells at a foreclosure sale for $300,000, but the mortgage was only $200,000. So the mortgage got paid off. There's $100,000 sitting after costs. Well, that's supposed to go back to the homeowner, or maybe sometimes subordinate lien holders. And in tax sales, the end of game is typically the same. There's a foreclosure if it doesn't pay back. And what the Supreme Court said is that these sales are going for way over the tax amount. This is tax, not mortgage. So it's way less than what the house is worth in a lot of cases, not always, but most cases. And that excess surplus that's created from that foreclosure sale has to go back to the homeowner. Well, for decades, no one had ruled on that. And so you had a lot of states that just kept it themselves, or investors that kept it themselves. And that became part of the return model, is like factoring that, hey, once in a while, we're going to get a home run and we're going to roll that into the ROI of our portfolio. And that is what it is, but not anymore. 9-0 decision. This is not controversial. You can't take more than you're owed. And that was the whole point of the foreclosure. So now you have to really, really get lean with your operations. You got to find other ways to mitigate that reduction of potential return. And by using software and by outsourcing things that you used to maybe do in-house because you could, right? Now, it doesn't make financial sense to do all that stuff yourselves because you're going to run yourself out of a return at all.
Okay, so let me calculate this. Let's say you had a $1 million tax lien and the property, if it was sold for 1.3 million. In the past, you get the 1.3. In this scenario, they're like, nope, you only get the $1 million. So that's worse for you as an investor, right, which means you need to be able to get leaner and scale it better, which makes sense for what you're doing. Right. Where does the 300 go now then?
So it goes back into the court. It's a court process that handles foreclosures typically, or a sheriff, that kind of thing. So it goes back to the court to try for the state, which of course controls the foreclosure process. or the county has to try to get it back to the homeowner.
Oh, okay. So they will try to turn around and get it back to them. All right. Be that as it may, you need to get more scale. All right. That makes sense. So is it still 15 to 18 then? Is that how much time and energy is associated with your process? Is it A to Z, or is it only once you've actually got the tax lien that you put it through your system? How does that work?
Yeah, so our software, we take the assets in after you've acquired them at the tax lien auction. Typically, these are annual auctions. They're held at the county level, and it's a piece of paper. It says you now own the tax lien on this property. The government transferred it to you. You paid the government cash. They give you the certificate. You're now the debt collector. But there's a waiting period, and that's called the redemption period. And you have to wait until that time passes before you can even try to foreclose on the property. But to be honest with you, the foreclosure isn't even for most big investors, that was never the game, just like it isn't for mortgage companies. That's the last case resort they want, right? But now it especially isn't, because there's even no upside from foreclosing. And so it's all about maximizing the redemptions. You want to be paid back. And in fact, historically, over 90% of all tax liens sold across the country will redeem at some point. And that means they'll pay back with the required interest and penalties and costs, et cetera, whatever that state requires. So it's a pretty high percentage now, but you got to get that above 90% now, because you got to make up for that reduction of potential long-term ROI from the surplus. And that's where JurisDeed comes in and helps investors to streamline their operations, reduce their overhead, and to be able to pick some of that back up. So the question is 15, 18% still realistic now with this post Supreme Court ruling? That was the Tyler case, by the way, in case you're some of the court nerds out there. The answer is, if they don't do anything else to change their operations, probably not. But you could if you did something else to mitigate it.
All right, everyone, you can learn more by going to jurisdeed.com, tax lien investing made simple. Okay, so got it. All right, so this is interesting. How much time and energy is associated with this? You know, like you mentioned that a couple of times in simplifying it, but like, what's the average? You know, someone's like, all right, I want to start with 500,000. I want to do it across 5 different tax liens, and I'm going to wait X amount of time before I, get a return on that. And what does it start looking like?
So first off, the best way is to pool money together. The larger the pool of money you can have, the better. And a lot of times that comes from just aggregating different investors, pooling it into, get some other funds together and put it all together. The bigger the fund, the better. You are going to be competing against institutional players that have been doing this for a very long time, and it's not easy to do. Coming in strong. You might want to get your feet wet with a smaller fund, and that's fine. It's hard to really lose in most systems because it's built to pay you back with plus interest and cost. So it's kind of hard to really, but you may not just get the scaled returns that you're targeting. And to work up to that, get your feet wet, learn all there is to know about the investment itself. That what happens, what do I need to do during the redemption period? Every state is different. And that is obviously one of the other value propositions that JurisDeed brings, is we've normalized all that. So you don't have to worry about those differences. But what do I need to do? And then how long do I got to wait? And then what happens if it doesn't redeem? Do I need to foreclose, hire a lawyer? How long do I got to wait? How many years is my money going to be tied up? Learn all of these things, which it's readily available information, many places. We're still building out our resource library and educational catalog. Over years, I've presented and written many papers on this, but never before in a software company context. So we're creating our catalog of different information that would help investors. But that's the extent that we're getting involved at that stage. The pre-auction stage is where there's plenty of information out there.
Okay.
Once you've gotten it, you can subscribe to the platform, and then you'll be able to upload your portfolio through a simple spreadsheet to our platform. And from there, our algorithms automatically read exactly where that property is located, which state laws applies. And then you can completely let the system do the work for you.
Nice.
Or when legal notices have to be sent out, when they have to be tracked, when you have to do this and that, whatever it is, it's done for you. Or you could do it yourself if you want to, and just use the platform to kind of track the performance.
Okay, this is really cool. I'm liking it. And I don't know if you guys are running a fund or there's a funds that someone says, that's cool, the software is cool, but I just want to be completely passive and I just want to
Yeah.
put, 100K or 500K into these things. Do you work with those or do you guys have that as well as an option?
So we have some partners that do that. We're not there yet. We're still very
Mm-hmm.
early on, and we're just focusing on what we're trying to build in our
Mm-hmm.
lane. And eventually, I think that we'll be more involved in that aspect of it. But right now, I think if you want to boil this whole thing down, you're someone's completely passive, like you just said. They just want to, like, hey, just I can write the check, just make it happen, right? And I think you might just need to involve two different places instead of one, instead
Mm-hmm.
of one right now. One, to get involved in a fund. There are plenty of REITs and there are plenty of other funds that you can join into, or create your own. But then the second call would be to us to, like, make sure that it actually makes the returns you're looking for in that particular state, or multi-state, all the way to the end.
Okay, cool. This is, yeah, that's really fascinating, interesting, and yeah, you're right. I've always seen it from the periphery, it's a part of the real estate world and definitely legit and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But just like the know-how and it's just seems like less people are knowing about it or how to do it. And so this definitely can bridge that gap. I see the value. That's cool. What haven't I asked you so far that you want to make sure you answer?
Well, this is part of a much bigger market of delinquent property debt, period. And we understand that's part of our journey. So that we're starting in tax liens because that's what I know and that's what I've become a national expert in over my career. So it was the path of least resistance, and it's very niche. But this is part of think about all kinds of delinquent debt that's secured by real estate. I mean, mortgages, right? And obviously, as the economy turns from good to bad, et cetera, the opportunity, more money has been transferred, wealth has been created through delinquent real estate than any other events in the history of time. And so you think about like the S&L crisis in the 80s or the stock market crash in the 08, 09, where so many people lost, but more people made money because of it was pennies on the dollar. So delinquent assets secured by real estate is one of the safest plays anywhere because especially tax liens, because you have a collateralized, securitized debt that is guaranteed by state, local, and federal laws, and it's given super lien priority status. What does that mean? It means in the rankings in the public records, it's who's ranked first is going to have the first dollars out when that asset liquidates. And tax liens are always given first priority, even for things that came before them, because the collection of tax is so paramount to the well-being of everyone that lives in that county. They depend on it. They have to make it that attractive for investors to come in and participate and lend the county that money. So it's kind of a unicorn, to be honest with you. And the only thing that's kept everyone from doing it has been all of these artificial barriers of complexity and fragmentation and cumbersomeness. And those are the things we're attempting to remove, and we're going to remove.
Okay, so let's say hypothetically, I'm like, all right, Steve, I want to give this a shot. Like, I'm going to go to the tax lien sale once a year or wherever I'm in Florida, and I'm going to show up with my 100,000. I'm going to watch some videos and maybe attend some courses with you. I'm like, all right, these are the parameters, and I find a couple good tax liens at 50,000 each, right? And boom, I get it, and then I win it. Great, I won it. I take my docs, I upload the stuff to the system, and just push go. And then the cash flow, and it's gonna monitor and do all the things it needs to do. And then when the payment comes, it's gonna show up in my bank account. Is that what am I simplifying it too much? Is that about right?
Maybe just a tad bit, but not a whole lot, though.
Okay.
Surprisingly enough. Look, first off, let me dispel any kind of rumors. Like tax lien investing, like any kind of very niche or a complex thing, it's not easy, right? So there are a lot of pitfalls, and that's really what we're trying to do, is mitigate some of that. So it makes it easier for people to get into, better chances of being successful. It does not mean that the whole thing is easy. So yes, you would acquire the liens and whatever. There's all kinds of strategies there that we don't have time to get into, and it isn't the focus of our company. But basically, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of courses, a lot of companies. Tax Lien Code is another one that puts out tax sale resources. These are companies that have been around for a long time, and that's their main thing, is making sure is connecting with investors on the front end and ensuring that they have the right knowledge base and expertise to be successful when they acquire it. And typically that's where they stop. They'll say, oh, we have preferred vendors and attorneys in these states and everything, and kind of say, good luck, and obviously that's the gap we're filling. Um, but yes, you can be very hands off because of our system that has not existed before. You would have to manage vendors and attorneys and title companies and understand the laws and have teams of people to go do drive-bys and research and everything. And it's a full-time job for several people. Some of these institutions that have been made all this money in it, the ones you hear about, like these massive returns, they have 30, 40, 50 people that have been doing this for decades, and they have built their own software systems. It's like, how in the world, like there's a reason why they're doing that well. And even those players we have some of them as our early adopting customers, because they're just trying to smartly streamline their operations and reduce overhead, et cetera. And they're seeing it as a way to move forward too. And so it can benefit anyone at every level of whether you're just starting or whether you're already invested in it and you're trying to, do better or make a better return than you are now.
Okay. Yeah. God, this is good. And then do you see the software eventually moving to, like you said, mortgage deeds and delinquents there? Is that kind of what you see the second iteration of this?
I think so.
Yeah.
Although I have stopped guessing to try to read the magic 8 ball about exactly how startups are created and where they end up being. One thing is for certain, it's never what you think it's going to be. And so, part of being going from 0 to 1, right? Creating something that doesn't exist is you have these preconceived notions about what you think it's going to be. And somehow if you're smart, and I have certainly skinned my knees several times, you let the market take you where it wants to go, right? You don't try to tell the market what it wants. You try to just respond. And so, yeah, look, I think it makes perfect sense to get to that point. It is 10x of the marketplace, at least. It's maybe 20x of the tax lien market mortgages are. And it's something that has been, ask anybody, how does somebody get a delinquent mortgage? How do they buy a delinquent mortgage? It's because you probably know someone at the bank, right? Joe is an attorney and knows Bob, who works at Bank One, whatever. And that's it. That's how they get him. It's ridiculous. It's just the good old boy system. And it's like everybody, there's no laws that say you have to have a license to buy it. You have to have a certain amount of education. No, it's a public tradable asset. Like you should be able to, a private asset. You should be able to just go get it. And yet it's kind of held like this. Why? Because there are people who make a lot of money from it, and they would like for me not to be telling you this right now.
Yeah, very well said. Stephen Morel, everybody. We're speaking with founder, CEO of JurisDeed. You can learn more by going to jurisdeed.com, jurisdeed.com. Yeah, fascinating. That's exactly what it seems like, right? I remember the 2008 crash days, Marcus Milchap back in Sacramento. It's like, how are these guys getting to all of these, bankers at the banks to even get the listings? And you find out, and I remember sitting down for this listing opportunity. It was like a 12 property portfolio, like $25 million, apartment complexes. And I sit down and I come to find out I'm competing against the guy who goes fishing with and hunting with the guy every other weekend. I'm like, oh my gosh. It was just to check off his box to say he met with multiple brokers. Right. But I never even had a shot at the listing opportunity. And I didn't find out until later, it's like, but you still kind of swing the bat. I remember I took the whole weekend. I drove 2.5 hours to drive all the properties, tour it, underwrite it, all prepared to get to this meeting. And I was all excited. And then you come out, you're like, I never even had a shot at this thing.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. And that's the good old boy system. So, a good analogy that we like to use is what we're building is the Robin Hood of delinquent property debt. What Robin Hood meant for stocks and crypto is it took a foreign concept to the vast majority of everyone out there who could be an investor and said, yes, you can do this too. Just sign up and click this button and you're in, right? It made it that simple and you didn't have to understand how to do it.
So we do capital gains tax solutions, and it's some crossover here. Ours is like big exits on big Bitcoin business real estate, not using the 1031 exchange. You can defer the tax. Cool thing is once the funds are in this trust, you can invest back into stuff like tax liens and different things, all tax deferred. So it's kind of like a 1031ing, businesses or real estate into tax liens if you think about it like that. But I'm curious on the software piece. Were you just you always knew how to do software, or you knew how to, you were a computer person with real estate and kind of just mixed, or how did you figure out how to basically do what you've done?
It's kind of part of my career journey. No, I was not trained formally in software, and I still am not the person that this company will always lean on for software development as we are doing right now. Thanks to AI, I'm able to do a lot more than I would otherwise be able to do. I went from being I'm an attorney in Louisiana. I was living here during Hurricane Katrina. My home flooded. Was been practicing law for a few years and hated every second of it. I just billing hours for doing other people's meaningless work. I just wanted to jump out the building. And that was sort of an awakening for me. I came back to my flooded house and had to learn how to fool with real estate and rebuild it. And I literally pulled up a boat to my house the first time I came back to it 2 weeks after the storm. And it's just nuts. It was just a crazy experience. And I just, again, fell in love with real estate. And then when I fixed my house, I was one of the early ones because I'm an Army veteran and I had USAA and they had checks on the ground ready to hand out to veterans. And I looked around by Christmas time. I was back in my house and I saw the rest, 80% of the rest of the city was still vacant. I'm like, oh my God, I need to do something with this gift that I've fallen in love with real estate. I'm back in my home. I have a law degree. What can I do? And we started working with the title insurance companies to get some of these blighted, abandoned properties to locate the homeowners because you can't move their house until you find them, and then get them moving along, get the commerce moving, but also taking care of my city at the same time. So it was really, really an awesome. It took me a while to figure all this out. But I went down that path, and that led me into a position I held for about 5 years as the chief legal officer for a software company. They were already working with local government to collect delinquent tax. They were hosting the tax sales online. They were one of the first ones to put them online. And they needed a lot of legal compliance, aspects kind of intertwined with all this stuff. And so I had developed this title insurance product to insure the ones that, believe it or not all of the properties sell at these tax lien sales. There's might be a 500 of these for sale in 1 year, and investors are smart, right? They'll pick the 400 they wanted. The other 100, guess what? Nobody paid those taxes. And so typically the counties and states have a process to just take them back into inventory, and then they try to sell the property some years down the road. Well, imagine this is the bottom of the barrel, right? These are the worst and the dirtiest titles. And those are the ones that I was given as almost like a fool's errand to go try to get clear title on these and come back and let me know when you succeed. And maybe we'll let you play around and put these up for auction for us. Well, I figured out a way to do that, and they hired us. And so we had a business, and the rest is history. I worked for this software company and brought this book of business into the software company, and it became a hit overnight. We started spreading this out across the state and then into other states. Mm-hmm. And it worked really well. So being exposed to they had a full-time engineering team.
It all came together. I love it. I love this journey. I love the story. Thank you for sharing that. Stephen Morel, it's been awesome to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing this cool insight on what you're doing with software, with investing into tax liens and, really moving the industry forward in a really cool, unique way for people to make money in real estate. Keep doing what you're doing, and encourage everyone to check out what you're doing. Thank you, Stephen. And I also want to thank all of our listeners for listening to another episode of the Bills Podcast. We're also streaming on Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channels. And we're on this journey with you to scale it from millions to billions so we can get more all the way to help MVPs. My name is Brett Swarts. I want to encourage you to take action today getting with Stephen and his team for tax liens. And if you have a large exit, business, Bitcoin, or real estate, $1 million plus, and you want to defer some capital gains tax, not being forced into a 1031 exchange to invest into investments like tax liens or other investments at no timing restrictions, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We'll talk to you all again next time. Thanks.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.